Welcome back to another iteration of FarfaCast. Today I've been joined by some of the greatest minds in Yu-Gi-Oh! Theory and understanding of how this game functions. Today joined
And
with
Bowden.
me... Yeah, and
and Alex.
No, that's not what that means. It's and Bowden.
So we've got Ryan and Bowden, both of whom are representing ARG. Ryan here, as always, as the main man, and especially shoutouts to Base Lolly joining us over from the Base Lolly Show. Make sure you guys check him out whenever possible. All those links and stuff will be in the description. But yeah, first of all, I guess let's dive right into it. I'm really excited to talk about, I guess, the game where we are in right now. So just beginning straight off, I think probably the most important thing that was recent and that occurred was the ban list. And that's really shaken up the, well, in theory, Banlist shake up the meta, not so much this one. But what's our initial thoughts on this list?
I looked at it and was really confused because I guess what I'm going to say is, yeah, so Firewall being banned, great. That card needed to go. So I guess before I, and I feel like it needs to be said, Firewall being banned is very important. Even though I think the combo decks are still here and can still do stuff, Firewall being banned is important. If the combo decks continue to do well, I really, really hope they don't think, oh, Firewall wasn't even the problem, and then unban Firewall. Please don't do that. Please don't let that happen. So if the combo decks continue to do well, don't unban Firewall, ban more stuff.
Yeah,
I guess so before, and then the rest of it, it was just all so negligible. I think Firewall being banned was the headliner, obviously, and that's big. Armageddon Knight going to 1 is weird because that card is a warrior type monster, and there is a link monster that summons those
doesn't
directly
achieve
from your
anything.
deck. Yeah, it going to 1 doesn't achieve anything at all, actually. Cards going to 1 in general kind of don't really main deck cards going. It's weird.
Yeah,
okay.
Unless the
cards going to 1 like Armageddon Knight, that card could be at 10 or 1. Is sold still summons it. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Is sold still summons it from your pile of 40. It doesn't matter. Malicious going to 2. I was very happy about that. That was something I wanted last list. That was something I specifically when I was talking about it. I was like, all right, well, if they're not going to ban a Sold or summon Sork because they're coming out in the next special editions, what can they do? And I was like, all right, maybe they have to curb the power level of the cards around it. So not necessarily cards that I think are necessarily ban worthy, but I was like, well, if a Soul can't get banned, what is it doing? I guess when you Gumblar, you're discarding Phoenix Blade twice. What if they ban Phoenix Blade? That kind of curbs the power of a Soul a little bit. What if they Malicious? That kind of curbs the power level of Summon Sork a little bit. If they can't hit these cards, they can hit the cards around them. And I think Malicious is a good hit. Call by the Grave going to 3, I think is why. Why that happened. That actually frustrates me a little bit. Dark Destroyer going to 3 is I don't think it matters, but it's was anybody really hurting of man, you give me such a more healthy game if Dark Destroyer was that? No. What is that?
Untargetable thing that
why?
back.
It's I'm not saying Dark Destroyer is Dark Destroyer is not an overpowered card that will ruin the game. I'm just no one was sitting at home going, man, the good old days of Dark Destroyer. No one said
I
that.
miss not being able to out that.
Yeah, I don't understand. And then A3, whatever. Firewall, who cares?
Yeah.
Calvin.
Bowden, what did you think?
Calvin.
I think everything that needed to happen sort of did happen, but you sort of underestimate the extent that it you overestimate the extent that it would have had compared to what actually did happen. Obviously Gumblar is a problem. I think there's a lot of underlying issues. Griffin into Curious is pretty oppressive. Sorry, Curious into Griffin's pretty oppressive. The Rongo deck still exists. There's just a bunch of decks that still exist, given the card pool that we have, and Firewall only really stopped a couple of decks from doing stuff that was crazy. You know what I mean? It got rid of FTKs, but there's still other pseudo FTKs existing. And I think that there were just other cards that needed to be hit. But this list just seemed like a band-aid. You know what I mean? If you look at it, it just seems like they put it there to slow the bleeding. People will stop complaining, and then we'll give you a better list in due time. We're just trying to figure out the rest of the format. And I think banning Firewall is probably a good start, because then you sort of see Firewall by default was probably just going to end up banned anyway. That's probably the way they viewed it. And they're well, if we ban it now, just as a knee-jerk reaction to everyone complaining about the danger FTK or Goki extra linking and shit like that, then all we have to do is have a month gap, have like a couple of events. So like for this one, they'll have 2 YCS events if they, stick to their claim of like, no sooner, no later than like whatever date. And then we just go from there. So I'm just hoping that that was their original intention, not just like, oh, this ban list probably like achieved something, because I think it did, but in like the large scheme of things, it really didn't. So
I think what's interesting about this ban list is, you mentioned that it's like kind of almost like an emergency list, which I made a video on, just shout outs. But anyway,
there's not a ban list channel.
the date on the top that they always put, no sooner than or whatever, that we always like to meme.
Oh, what is this one? I actually don't know what this one is.
So this one's January 20, yes. So this is the shortest gap that they've given us in comparison to the previous lists since they started doing it. So just a fun fact. So, that probably is their intention for this to be part 1. And then maybe to like...
It gives them a refresh moving into the new set as well. Yeah. Like there's a lot of new product coming out, and that seems to just be like their main goal is to just like invigorate like new products like being released to not make them just redundant. Because like we've seen a lot of dead product being released recently. Like let's be honest, the last like deck building set was just nothing.
Summoners.
Exactly. Like what did that achieve? That was a dud. You have like just a bunch of deck building sets over like the last couple of years that just didn't really produce anything of worth, and they just sit there. Like maybe it's good for the casuals, but I just think like you just like can't integrate some of them into the format. Like even Dark Lords had like a sort of like role when the game was like semi-balanced. Like granted, Steve Silverman, shout outs to him, was the only person to top that YCS with Dark Lords, and he was the only person like.
I think he's the only person that's ever topped. I think he's the only person that topped a YCS with Dark Lords like for that whole time, right?
Just at all, right? Yeah.
I didn't even know that was a top.
Yeah, it was.
Even at that point, like the Dark Lord cards are just like generically good. Like that set just produced like a lot of good individual cards, because like Ixtal is just a Destiny draw that that's kind of busted. But now you just have like all these ones where it's just like, here's my Prank Kid deck, like here's my Sacred Phoenix of Nephthys deck, like just all the awkward stuff that doesn't do anything.
That deck is so bad.
But it's like you're just like looking at these sets come out and you just get disappointed, because like they obviously just power crept by stuff like Striker. They're getting power crept by just like anything that exists currently. So you just need a ban list that just like shifts everything out of the way. New stuff comes out, people buy the new stuff, people play the new stuff, and that's sort of like the endless cycle. That's like their own set rotation sort of deal. But like the best lists are like when everything's so balanced that the new set can come out and doesn't like push everything else out.
Yeah,
that's something.
I think Thunder Dragons. I actually think Thunder Dragons were at a pretty good power level. Like they didn't push anything else out, and they're not like the best deck. They're kind of, they actually fit like pretty neatly in the middle.
That was like one of the 50-50 ones where I think like it didn't do a lot. Like it's impressive, but in like the grand scheme of things, it was released at a time where like everything else was kind of oppressive too. So it just like doesn't matter.
Alex, tell us your take on this list.
So like I had a conversation with Ryan like maybe like a month and a half ago, maybe like 2 months ago, and he said something along the lines of like it was right after Bowden posted that haha, I'm drunk, Yu-Gi-Oh is done, go home.
Oh my gosh.
I wasn't drunk.
Facebook.
I just posted you. That was after the Daedra FTK. I just knew I was like, it's over.
Right. So Ryan was like, and I was pretty on board with that. I was like, yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh might be done. And Ryan was telling me, he said, look, I mean, Yu-Gi-Oh just might not be playable because like firewall is a problem. And I first want to say, I want to preface this with like, it shouldn't be downplayed. Like I'm echoing a bit what Ryan said here, where it shouldn't be downplayed that Firewall Dragon like wasn't a problem, or that I am unhappy that only Firewall Dragon was banned. I think that was like correct, very much so. I think the list was made purely out of like public outcry, because I was kind of surprised nothing happened with Striker, nothing happened with like Altergeist, nothing happened with, and I mean, I know like maybe nothing should happen with Trickstar, but like nothing actually happened with Trickstar either.
That card, that deck has just been out for 2 years, like a year and a half. That deck has been out for a long time now. That's actually.
And it's just consistently like, even though haha, it sucks, but like it's been in the metagame for like a really, really long time. Yeah. So it's like,
I mean, it won a YCS.
Right, exactly. So
technically.
It's just like, like a little one.
Wow.
So it's just confusing, right? Like, but
in one world.
Firewall is amongst like there are like 7 to 10 cards that need to be like to fix Yu-Gi-Oh, right? To like fix Yu-Gi-Oh. There's like a laundry list of cards. But then that comes down to like a whole argument as to what is Yu-Gi-Oh, like what defines Yu-Gi-Oh as like Yu-Gi-Oh. And I had this discussion with what's his name, fucking Earl Ratman. What's his name? What's his last name?
It's Pharaoh from Duelist Ground.
So yes. So he was saying like, because when I was complaining about the time rule, I was like, this isn't Yu-Gi-Oh. This isn't fundamentally Yu-Gi-Oh. And he goes, well, like your definition of fundamentally Yu-Gi-Oh isn't actually fundamentally Yu-Gi-Oh. Like Yu-Gi-Oh is a game. I don't know that anyway.
That's a pretty cop out answer, but sure.
Right. Yeah.
Whatever. I'm not gonna nitpick that one.
I agree, but I also think like there's a good point to be made that like Yu-Gi-Oh is like ever changing, and that you can't necessarily like there is a laundry list as to fix Yu-Gi-Oh, but I mean Yu-Gi-Oh is just evolving. It's just like an evolving game. So kind of like in line with what Bowden said, I really like seeing lists that allow new sets not to overpower but to integrate. Integration's like awesome. In Yu-Gi-Oh, where like Thunder Dragon, I mean, look, it came out and it wasn't like insane, but it was pretty good, and it made the other decks kind of like pretty good. But we still had Firewall Dragon, so Goki was just crazy, and then Danger FTK was crazy. So I guess this list, I'm not a huge fan of like the minimalistic lists, and that's what this is. So like, I don't know, this Firewall is banned, hooray. I'm just now it's like the meta game without Firewall, and it's just like the same, like it's like almost the same format otherwise.
I was really mad at like how much people were like criticizing like me, especially on YouTube and stuff, saying like, oh, you know, your firewall's banned and you're still not happy and stuff. And it's like, Konami are the kind of company that like cut off your hand and then give you back 3 fingers, and that's like, and then everyone's like supposed to be, and then everyone tells me, well, you know, at least you have 3 fingers, you know, you could probably write with that and stuff. Like, you know, the point is like the hand was taken off there. They printed Firewall. You know,
what kind of analogy is that?
It's like, because it's like they take something and then they give it back to you in like a
no.
And it's just like
it doesn't.
It should have reached that point to begin with, you know.
But like they didn't imagine that it would reach that point. You know what I mean? It's just like there's so many cards on that list that can just be Firewall Dragon, right? Like there's cards that just limit future card design, and it's like, when you don't like put it into consideration, then every card's sort of Firewall. You know what I mean?
Yes. I just think some are more easily exploitable than others.
Oh yeah, of course. Like when you like just reading it,
pretty easily exploitable one.
Yeah.
Amongst
I get that.
It's just silly that like I don't like how in an ever evolving game that like decks just stick around too long, like way too long.
Well, what is too long in Yu-Gi-Oh?
Constantly evolving. See, I guess that's so like, I think that's subjective. I think that's totally subjective, actually.
Like what like from a company perspective, like what like for their like.
I can tell you that.
Yeah, probably.
Okay. And this is gonna sound really cynical, but like, if a deck makes it so your upcoming products are unsellable, why why? Then that's too long.
Yeah.
Like however, you do have to strike a balance where you like it's not just deck comes out ban it, because if that happens, then people will not buy your new cards because they think it'll get banned so quickly. So it has to be long enough that the people who do buy the deck feel like they got value out of their purchase, but not so long that your upcoming products, not necessarily like your next direct product, but maybe like Dark Saviors was in June, something like that.
It was like May, but yeah.
May, yeah. It should probably be out of the picture by the time your February product comes out, you know? or else like
Well,
your February
that's
You're
an
very
issue.
dangerously dancing around the concept of set rotation, right?
Yes,
Of
I
course, but
understand
like
that.
there's also the concern is also when cards are in such like high rarity. You'll notice this, by the way. Like if you look at some of the ban lists and like look at the cards that get hit from certain decks, you'll notice that it's never cards that are like generally expensive on the secondary market or hard to pull from sets, right? So if Sky Striker does get hit, I'm expecting cards like Widow Anchor and maybe
Kagari.
Engage. Yeah,
Kagari,
like
maybe?
well, Pegari, I think is like a 50-50. I'm not expecting them to get hit. I'm expecting those cards to like remain, and you will just see other cards be hit residually. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah, but
because
see, the problem is,
I think in the case of Sky Striker, there's not much else you can
Yeah.
hit.
Oh,
like
of course, but like
multi-roll,
that-
like maybe they hit
that-
multi-roll. I
that
don't
was
even know.
very well. Like that was very like a very well selling set. Like that set was worth a lot of money
I
to
know.
like
Yes.
every company, right? So
Yes.
their default is I don't want people like existing and buying stuff and then just like having it. They've spent a lot of money. It's like, well, the absolute worst case scenario is like until there's a reprint of the cards from DASA, I don't expect anything to be like crucially hit. I expect maybe like small stuff. I can see Striker with like Engage going to 2 or Widow Anchor going to 2. I don't see stuff getting banned. I don't see any of the OTS ultis like going to 1. I don't think that's like what they want to be achieving.
I think the
because
OTS
then it's
ultis
like-
have been limited, like very. I think that's actually the one that I don't really understand. I feel like cards that are printed as OTS ultis get limited or hit
Like,
way
really
more
bad.
frequently than they
Really
should.
quickly, too.
I feel like they should just pick different cards. Like I mean, I feel like
Maybe.
that actually could be why Whiptail was made the ulti because they knew they weren't going to hit Whiptail. Like they were
Yeah,
hitting the
yeah,
other
yeah,
ones,
yeah.
but.
see, the issue
Sure.
with that, I think, is like, it's like supposed to save players money, and it's something they kind of do in Duel Links as well. They tend to avoid hitting the supers and the ultras because that's the money cards from their game. But
Yeah.
it's like if you start hitting like certain supers and commons in an archetype, like you can hit them, but by default the expensive cards become unplayable if the deck as a whole it becomes bad.
Oh yeah, of course.
I
You
think
know,
I think
like
Well,
how
like, I
good
feel
is
like-
Engage if the rest of the cards are hit? You know,
Yeah.
Like, exactly. Like I think that's the mid ground that they have there. Like realistically, you can just limit rate to 1 and like maybe put drones to 2 or something. Put Engage to 2, like something like weird like that, and it might actually just like create a big enough shift. Because Striker like ideally only needs 1 raid to play, but then if you just like stop one of their summons and cut them off their raid, then what are they going to be doing? You know what I mean? That's just like that deck doesn't really do that much. So if you just like sort of limit how many other things it can do, and then like you just let people play their normal game of Yu-Gi-Oh, then the deck's probably just gonna suck, and you don't have to hit any cards that were like super relevant to the strategy that were expensive. And by default, your Dark Saviors stock that was reprinted because the set was such a good seller is still at least the distribution level, people still want it.
Right.
So that's a good way to look at it.
I like that too because especially in decks like that, I don't know if it can be applied to every deck, but I maybe as Yu-Gi-Oh is evolving where everything searches itself, it can. You can just hit all the cards, like hit all like the high value search targets, and then and I mean maybe Armageddon Knight is like a precursor to that. But I guess all you need is theoretically 1, right? So say like 1, right?
I think Armageddon
Hornet
Knight's
drones,
the exception to the rule, but yeah.
Right.
Hornet drones is kind of but like imagine like 2 Hornet drones to Engage, where like your deck is just Trick Striker in a format where Trick Striker probably just isn't relevant.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like we've come so far from that point in the game.
Yeah.
So I could see stuff like that. Like you just have like Ray at 1 and then everything else is just the same.
I think like I much prefer them when they like address archetypes and address cards that I really hate seeing consistency hit because then the deck just becomes explosive, but like sometimes, and it's like really frustrating to like play against. So rather than like hitting the consistency, just hit the power cards. Maybe like addressing like Widow Anchor and stuff like that. So the deck is still consistent, but it's doing what it does best a little less often.
I guess I don't think Widow Anchor is like really the issue though. I think
Just as an
like
example.
leading and like that deck also just isn't like oppressive at all. And the only like this is gonna like stem into the Milan thing. Maybe we should start the Milan discussion, and I can just tell you what I think about Sky Striker.
I can tell you what I think about Sky Striker.
Yeah, very good, Alex. We know what you think.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna show you.
We are trying to keep it a little bit
more
more general and stuff for today, but I
All
mean,
right.
like just talking about like because the next point that I want to move on to was the sets and stuff, and it was actually something you kind of mentioned earlier, and like I think that what they do now when they release archetypes, when they release cards, they release a set and they give you an archetype in that set. More often than not, it's playable out of the set. Whereas I don't know like what the best way that they need to address, like maybe not so much the power creep, but do they release archetypes like integrally, like very slowly, like over the course of like 3 sets? So
they did that with Alder guys.
They did that with
right.
Cosmo too.
So like your deck feels like it's playable and then it gets stronger over time. Rather than like having like necros and it's just like boom, like well, I mean
I actually think that it kind of
that's what they called like deck building sets though.
Right, yeah. So I much prefer like if there was this like set that came out and it just had general support for like lots of archetypes, but also some, you know, isolated cards like Mathematician, Soul Charge.
It's very tough to do, and a lot of that does just stem from like how Japan looks at stuff now. Like people are more inclined to buy a set and like continue buying a set if it means, okay, well I need to get a play set of like this card, this card, this card, this card to complete my deck, which is only available from this set, right? And that's like the logic going into it. Well, like what Japan's making these sets, right? Japan's like they're not gonna alter like any of the themes in a core set. All right, but yeah, like Japan's gonna like make the themes in these core sets be relevant enough that people will have to continue buying the product to like get the deck, right? When it's spread over multiple products, then I feel like you sort of just like limit how well a set will be received from the public. Does that make sense? Like imagine a hypothetical, like this magical world, right? Now imagine like Duelist Saga, not Duelist Saga, Dark Saviors is just like the exact same that we have now, minus Engage, minus Widow Anchor, and then like let's just say you throw some like generic stuff in there, maybe like a cool like generic card. Let's say like Pankratops is just randomly in there as a secret rare. All right, now imagine Engage and Widow Anchor get spread out into other sets. For the sake of this discussion, I think maybe XFO was like probably one of the more garbage sets that we've seen this like in the last year. And then like let's just say Engage is in that set as a secret rare. I don't think Dark Saviors would be as like well received if Engage wasn't in there. You know what I mean? Like everyone's buying the one set to get the core.
I think
they want every card in it.
I think it's maybe like too small of a set for that to really work, perhaps.
I guess, but like,
they've done it both ways.
You can't make them too big.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they would have to throw more archetypes in there, and like we've seen that just be an issue. You know, it's like a predominantly foil set. Like I feel like maybe merging.
I can name like 10 examples of each way you're talking about. Like Thunder Dragons. Okay, other than the regular Thunder Dragon in Metal Raiders, like we're all in Soul Fusion, right? Like that's a recent one. You know, they're all in Soul Fusion. Sky Strikers are, except for like Hayate and like the Earth, the one that probably isn't good, but who knows? Are all in Dark Saviors. You know, like Trick Stars. They have been getting incremental support that have been unplayable, and the only actual playable cards all came from Code of the Duelist, right? Like that's what's been happening. Then if you look back, you can see examples of stuff like Altergeist got incremental support, right? They got Marionetter and Silcoitus in Code of the Duelist, I want to say. Maybe Circuit Break. I actually don't know. Maybe it was Circuit Break.
It was
Circuit Break. And then Meliseek. Yeah, okay. It was Marionetter and Meliseek were in Circuit Break. Then
so the question is, do you think that's good?
Well,
incremental or to do
it depends because what we actually saw there. So the examples I was going to bring were Altergeist, Burning Abyss, and Spellbooks. I actually think all kind of encompass like the different like points on the spectrum you can go with this. So Altergeist, right? They were unplayable in Circuit Break. They were unplayable in Extreme Force. They had Marionetter, Meliseek. Then they got Hextia, which is a great card, but not actually like good if you don't have Multifaker. Then they got Multifaker. So when Multifaker came out, and that card was as insane as it is, there was kind of like a bubble on like Marionetters and Meliseeks, which were like $1, became like $10 cards. So people that knew Multi-Figure was coming out and wanted to play Altergeist and already had playsets of these cards, sure, they just had their, you know, they had their whole deck except for Multi-Figure. People who didn't and saw Multi-Figure and go, wow, this is a, like somebody, let's just say somebody, hypothetically, even though it's 2018, opens a pack of Flames of Destruction, does not know what is in it, reads this card, Altergeist Multi-Figure, and goes, wowie, what a great one this is. I wonder what Altergeist cards I can summon off of this. Then they go on the Yu-Gi-Oh card database and they type Altergeist. All right, stick with me. I know this is reaching a bit. Type Altergeist. They look at the Altergeist cards and they see they're all split up into a bunch of these different sets. And they go online, they go on eBay, they go on whatever, and they see Marionetter's $10, Meliseek is $10. Nah, not really for me. You know, like. Sometimes that happens, right? Where like the deck was just unplayable garbage, then it gets an insane card, then there's like a bubble. Then there's like Burning Abyss. They got Grafseer Skarm and Dante.
Everything
and the
for BA was just very like reasonable in my opinion. There,
yes.
I feel like BA was more like
BA came out of the gates as like a tier 1 deck. So you've got a tier 1. So now you have what is already either the best deck or like the second best deck, and it's just like it's crazy. And then it just gets more support, and it just gets cemented as the best deck as every set goes
the
by.
craziest part is like everything that would like subsequently come out was just by like Yu-Gi-Oh standards pretty cheap in comparison. You know what I mean? Like there were no real jumps. Like
I'm not. Yeah. So then the problem you're getting into is. You get your Burning Abyss cards like you know, from whatever the third set BA was, and at this point they started making them pretty bad. You know, like you get your like Farfas from Secrets of Eternity, and you get all your BA cards. You go, this one's pretty good. Like maybe you have a couple more from, you know, like the new challengers, and you're like, I wonder what the other ones are. And you look at Dante, and Dante came out 9 months ago. You know, Dante came out 3 sets ago. Your locals doesn't even have that set in stock anymore, and it's $70. And it's like, now how accessible are these cards to the player base? And I think the worst offender of this was spellbooks. I think this is where I wanted to like lead up to, is spellbooks were the absolute worst offender of like how bad this can be for the company, for the players, for everything, which is
where everything came
Return
out
of
like
the
5 million
Duelist,
sets ago. Yeah.
where Return of the Duelist had Secrets and Magician. Those are cards you need in your deck. They were ultras back when it was still like 2 ultras per pack or whatever. So you have these. The deck had it was Secrets, Blue Guy, Priestess, Power, and I think Wisdom. Those were all the good spell books, like the playable.
It came out in the Geargia set, huh?
It came out in the Geargia set. That set did not sell well because when Geargia came out, Geargia was not seen as very good. Eventually, Geargia became good, or became like, you know, like a deck people liked. But at the time, that set sold awful because there weren't actually good cards in it. Like really, like the cards were good. They like had potential, but weren't quite there. Abyss Rising. We had
Order of Chaos that year.
Yes.
Every other set was just shit in comparison.
Yeah. We had Photon Shockwave and Order of Chaos. Yeah. So then the next set we build on spellbooks, and we get Fate, and we get Power, and we get Eternity. And those are really, really good. Like, for those of you who know what the spellbook deck ended up being 3 sets later when Judgment came out, you know that these are all cards you put in your deck. Then next set was Spellbook of the Master, and that was a secret, and that was like a $40-$50 secret, and then you needed that for your spellbook deck. And keep in mind, there are like 30 prophecy monsters that are just unplayable that have come out at this point.
Of course.
Then it leads into Lord of the Tachyon Galaxy, one of the crazy, like it's probably like top 5 most powerful sets we've ever seen in Yu-Gi-Oh! Has Spellbook of Judgment, and I think that was the only spellbook card you actually put in the spellbook deck from that set.
For the most part, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. So you Spellbook of Judgment.
So was Star Hall in that set?
Oh no, Star Hall
it might have been.
The Duelist. It was a TCG exclusive though. So you get Spellbook of Judgment. So now, let's just say hypothetically again, you open Lord of the Tachyon Galaxy pack and you pull Spellbook of Judgment and you read it and you correctly think, wow, this might be the best Yu-Gi-Oh card I have ever read. And at that point, it probably was. The odds of you having read a better Yu-Gi-Oh card than Spellbook of Judgment, very low. Then you go, okay, now I have to get all these Spellbook cards that I like. I guess I have to get 2 more Spellbook of Judgment. You look, they're over $100. All right, sure. Like, I pulled one. Then you go, all right, I need my Spellbook of the Master. What did that come out of? Oh, the previous set. Okay, that card's this much. Okay, now I need Fate and Tower. Where'd that come out? 2 sets ago. Oh, I don't even know if my local still has that one. All right, now Secrets and Blue Guy, those came out 3 sets ago. There's no way any store has these anymore. You know, so now you're left with, again, similarly to where like Marionetter and Meliseek like went up because they were like 2 sets old. Like you now have crucial cards, Blue Guy and Secrets, in an unpopular, under-opened set, Return of the Duelist, and these cards are just like the deck is just so expensive now that like realistically, like you can't play it unless you're just going to spend all your money on it, which like people do, competitive players do that because we have to, but like that doesn't help the company because they're not making any of that profit. It's the secondary market making all that profit. The players are not helped by this because it's just harder to get cards because they're in different places. They're old. You have to spend more money to like track them down. The only one it really helps is the secondary market and the vendors, but only if they saw this coming and they bought like and they took a gamble that an underpowered archetype a year ago was gonna get a Spellbook of Judgment, which like they shouldn't have, obviously. Yeah. So you're left in this really weird spot of like, is this really how we want our cards to be released? Like, who does this actually benefit? And I would argue, also just like, as I pointed out, I would argue almost no one. Everyone
like, no one ends up happy because like the Spellbook of Judgment gets banned, right? The deck just
no. That was actually where I was looking at. Is then we were talking about the ban list of when you said like they don't ban the expensive cards, then they banned Spellbook of Judgment.
That one was a mistake that they learned in the like from the past. Like they know not to do stuff like that anymore. You know what I mean? Like that was just too far gone at that point.
That was
but like when you look at it.
Yeah, that was terrible.
Anybody who read Spellbook of Judgment should have known it was getting banned, but still, it's like.
But it made the people that played like had bought the cards like you know like the people at your locals who like will see an archetype that's like very undersupported, very underpowered, but they have hope. They enjoy like the pitches, they enjoy the lore behind it, and they're like, you know what? I'm gonna play my Spellbook deck, summon Batel, haha! I am that guy. You know what I mean? Like stupid shit like that.
Yes.
Even though I'm talking about like 4 of my friends at this point.
Definitely.
It's hilarious.
But the thing is, like, on the flip side, like maybe that is what Konami intends for people who pick up an archetype to do. Like you start with a deck from X set, and it's not maybe like it's playable. Like Cosmo, I guess,
then
was
don't make every card $30 secret rares. Like don't make every card of an archetype.
Imagine if like Spellbook had that trickle down sort of deal. Imagine if books just had like the nice trickle down rarity distribution, and you had like, let's say you had Judgment from the beginning, and it took one event to identify, hey, this is just stupid, right? And then they banned Judgment, but then you still have the deck at like relative full power minus Judgment for the foreseeable future in like into Mermail format instead of just having like this really shitty residual like shell of what it could have been.
So what's the so maybe we should take the Burning Abyss route. It sounds like to be the best one, where the deck is super strong out the gate, and then you have like addendums.
I think the Burning Abyss route and the Sky Striker route, and to a certain extent even the Necros route, where like you get cards and you have a deck and it's very good, and then you get well, I guess in the TCG it didn't do anyway, but talk about and then you get a couple like you get your cake and your frosting. Then you get some sprinkles like over the next couple sets, right?
Over time. Nothing
like
is
over
crazy.
time. Like Hayate was just, Hayate was just the icing on the cake.
Like you already had a good deck. Now your deck's better.
You already had a great deck. Now you have. Yes, behind every great deck is an even greater. That doesn't.
I love.
Anyway.
That's the phrase. You got it right.
Is an even greater deck. Isn't even behind every key card is even greater cards. Like
no, but I actually think the Burning Abyss route is correct because not only that, but like the first 3 BA cards that were released to this day are the best Burning Abyss cards ever.
Have you read Dragic?
Graph,
Boy, Dragon.
Okay, so,
Bar is actually unfortunately
fucking Cagna.
unfortunately pretty good.
But no.
Yes.
The idea behind Cagna was good, though. I think Cagna was like probably one of the more well-designed ones.
No, but you see what I mean? Like they printed the best 3, and so then all of the sets after, it was like they made acceptable Burning Abyss monsters. But it made you feel like, wow, I picked up my 3-graph, 3-seer, 3-scarm, haha, Calvin, and now I feel good. Like my purchase is like solidified, right?
But those cards, because those cards weren't $30 each. Dante was the only expensive card. Right. You didn't have
case in point. I like it when decks not like the Necrons, right, where every deck or where every card is like $5 million and like it costs like 2 of my kidneys. I really like it where it's like there's like a lot of, you have to get like these $1, $2, $5, whatever, and then there's one card, and Dante was like at its peak, what, like $120?
No, okay, that was like, you're just making up numbers. Dante,
no, it was
definitely like 120. Dante was not more than $80.
Australian.
It was like it had to be like $100.
Stop.
It was 100% like £50 like over here. It was £50.
It was like at most $80. Please stop this ridiculous.
It was all right.
Everyone remembers cards being way more expensive. Like everyone remembers cards being more expensive.
Best I'm going is $240. It was $240.
Like the best one is like, do you guys remember when Dark Destroyer was $7,000? Like no.
Yeah,
I remember.
Like, it was a lot.
Remember when Dark
Destroyer was actually like 120, and like Necrozabryonic
was 7,000.
Like Necrozabryonic was like 130, but like people were like, do you remember when Diagram was $8 trillion? Like no, stop.
Yeah, it was like $920,000.
Yeah, it's just like no, that's not. Like
I remember selling my house for it. I remember giving it like yes, like I remember Brian, like I remember it like the back of my hand. But anyway, case in point, I really like it when decks are structured like that, because then it also makes it so that everybody can kind of it incentivizes everyone to kind of buy in. They're like, oh well, this deck is really good. And yeah, I get it. Like, there's like an expensive boss monster or like an expensive key card, but then like everything else is like manageable. And then until then,
I think Sky Striker kind of was that.
Like it coming out like
roll was cheap.
Early out
was cheap.
Well,
no,
I think you just like very
Widowmaker and Engage. Pretty.
Well,
I guess
that happened with Necros too. The entire Necros deck, other than Brio and Valk, was like a used napkin. Like I could trade a box of tissues for a Necros deck, except for the
playable cards. I'm inclined to disagree. It was very expensive.
Did you just say Unicorn Kaleidoscope?
Tacoma.
Is that what just what? Unicorn. Necros of Unicorn was like a quarter, and that was the best card ever printed, other than Public Judgment.
Nice. I don't actually. Yeah, no, but it was a lot of money. You know, actually, where I'm getting my source from, like my empirical data from, is actually from a Asianized White Dragon Vine, where he's doing a deck profile.
Necros plays
Necros. Yeah, Necros.
I've definitely seen that video, but it was like 4 years ago.
R.I.P.
It was in a montage. I just wanted to see. Anyway, it doesn't.
R.I.P. old Asianized. But anyway, I wanted to move on to the second half of this. So we're going to be talking about. So we looked at like sets and stuff. I wanted to specifically look at individual cards. I think like one of the biggest hot topics is, and something that a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh players criticize at the moment is like power creep. And just how like strong like individual cards have become and stuff like that.
Yeah, we were just talking about that.
Yep, that's a problem.
so like the way I think that the game is going is like, you know, it's been like this way for a long time. It's like individual cards just do so much on themselves. So like the biggest example we can think of, we can probably bring to the forefront here is the Nightmares. Like all like individually, all their effects are okay. But then when you bring them together, it's like this just nuts. Like
those cards are disgusting.
Yeah,
I actually like. Oh my god,
he's getting nauseous.
I'm getting nauseous just thinking about the development process behind Nightmare Unicorn. I just get nauseous. That was actually that one's actually one of the more fair ones. I should have said I could have named any other ones. It's like, oh my god.
So like. I think like links like further exacerbated this problem because not only is it like something that's extra deck related, which makes it, you know, by default very accessible, very easy to make. You now also have probably the easiest summoning mechanic to perform rather than Exceed materials, which very specifically require 2 of the same level or 2 of the same level and the same archetype. You now have links, which is just like 2 monsters, and it's like, what is that? It's like a token, a guy, your fucking leftover handkerchief. Like anything makes a link monster now, you know, and it's like so easily accessible.
Soul Charge summons your entire binder onto the table. We're not like we're not really sure how it got there, but it gets.
You're
there
just
somehow.
ripping the pages off at this point.
Have you seen?
This guy, summon this guy.
I will like. It's known this is not the most optimal way. Like this combo, definitely, it probably just FTKs, which is hilarious. But have you seen the new Fire Fist link? Like, just
I think it sends a Fire Fist to
making a level 6, making the Fire Fist Synchro Monster Horse Prince.
Yeah,
does whatever you want. The new Fire Fist link says you don't need to send fire formations to activate Fire Fist monster effects, so you can loop Dragon, Bear, and Tiger King, and you can have Dragon bring back Tiger King, have Bear pop Tiger King, and use Tiger King's effect that says send 3 fire formations to summon 2 Fire Fists from your deck or something. And you can just do that without sending fire formations. You can use Dragon to bring it back without sending fire formations, and you can use Bear to pop it without using fire formations. So you can just loop those 3 cards like literally forever. There was literally the guy just ended on Beauregard, Borreload, Borrelsword. I'm like, may as well. Like, what else? I mean, what are you gonna do? It's like
that's crazy.
Like, are we so far gone that Fire Fist is putting out these boards?
Do we remember when we would compare? We would say the fair decks are Fire Fist decks,
yes.
And now,
to quote Patrick Hoban, like Fire Fist went from Fire Fist to Infernity real fast.
Yeah,
Jesus.
That's crazy.
He said that about Cosmo. He just said, "Wow, this deck went from Fire Fist to Infernity real fast." When Fire King Island came out and all those combos came out, but like, damn, Fire Fist going from Fire Fist to Infernity really fast. Like, all it needed was
Fire Fist looking real thick, etc.
Yes.
So looking at like you know, I don't know. I guess we could talk about the individual power of like cards and stuff, and like how that's just like so problematic. And you know, where do you like draw the line with some of these things? And Ryan, you had a very good example with Battery Man and Armageddonite.
Yeah.
If you want to tell us about that.
I think what I compared was, I think if you look at Battery Man Solar, it is what Armageddonite would have been if it were designed in the year 2018. So what that is to say, when
for a very undersupported archetype at the time, like in
when
hindsight.
Armageddonite came out, its effect is like, if this card is like summoned, like send a dark from your deck to the graveyard, right? When you think of it in the context of 2008 or 7, was it 7 or 8? One of those, 10 years ago,
it was
right?
8, yes.
If you think about it in the context of 2008 Yu-Gi-Oh, what did that like accomplish, or like when it's summoned? Like, okay, so realistically, how many times are you summoning it per turn? Probably once. You are more than likely just normal summoning it, using its effect. Maybe you're using, like, I don't remember, either Call, Prima, or Reborn. One of those were legal at the time. I think that was still when those 3 cards would just keep rotating. I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, that's probably how you were summoning it additionally, other than your normal summon, if you were at all. So more or less, it was sending 1 monster, right? So then, what were you sending? Like, maybe malicious, maybe something else. Like, what, like, to what end was sending a monster? Like, what did that actually get you? Just sending 1 monster is probably fine, right? Because like the game is very limited in what it can do, in like, you know, whatever. So that's fine. We don't need any restrictions on you know, more than once per turn, because how are you even summoning it once per turn? What they didn't think about was maybe in 10 years we're gonna make cards that you summon it 86 times a turn and from your deck, and like then
it also came from like
to make 86.
It also came from like a really weird time as well, where like you had like Stratos as a normal summon. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So then, you know, speed up to 2018. You've got Battery Man Solar. It is when this card's normal or special summoned, send a Thunder from your deck to the graveyard, which is far less supported than Dark. So it's okay to make a card that generic. And because it is 2018 and Yu-Gi-Oh cards are good now, it has a little bonus effect, and you get a little token, you get a little guy. So,
and the important thing is that it's once per turn.
Throw that one in.
And they're both hard once per turn, right? So that
Hidden
is
ability,
the extent
yeah.
of what this card can do. Is it does something you like, and then it does a little bonus thing, like a little bonus thing. You know, you make a 0/0 token, right? That's all you get. And then maybe because it's 2018, we make a link 2 with that, and then that's good. You know, that's what our card does, right? Not like, but we only get to do it once. We don't get to do it, you know, 38 times.
So what do you guys think about
throw the numbers again? Yeah.
What do you guys think of like hard once per turns? Because I think like that itself is the thing that will like save the game like from its power creep.
I would actually like them to, as dumb as it sounds, make more use of the mare type things. Like I believe there are
can only be summoned in a certain way. Like,
yeah. So well, I was focusing more specifically about the last line of text. So
the thrice part.
Mare and Coach King Giant Trainer say you may only use the effect of this card thrice per turn. I wish
and to ignore the people who are illiterate and don't know what thrice means.
That means 3 times. So
Exactly.
I would like for them, if not a hard once per turn, to at least maybe you can only use this effect twice per turn. You're right, something like that, right? You can only use the effect of Armageddon Knight. You can only use the effect of Armageddon Knight twice per turn. Like, you know, not specifically Armageddon Knight, but it's like something like that. Like, you know, not to say like 2 or 3 specifically, but it's like maybe they find that like, oh, this card creates an infinite loop, right? Like maybe, oh, this card creates a loop, and we don't want an infinite loop, but maybe
like a loop thrice per turn.
Yeah, maybe thrice.
I'll repeat the action thrice, not just as many times as I want.
But yeah, do you guys think that is like what they need to do to like balance cards?
My issue with that, if they do it in the future, is that we already have so many cards that aren't like that because Yu-Gi-Oh has been around forever. By forever, I mean like since 2003, and they're just like. But at the beginning, they printed so many cards that just didn't say that. And so, as you can see now, like all the cards that have been abusing like every new mechanic that's been pushed has always been like a card
soul-eating bone tower or whatever. I don't even know what that card is.
Yeah, like something
gain a billion life. Okay, that could have they could have slapped a thrice per turn on that one. I don't think anybody would have complained.
Where was thrice when we needed him?
Yeah,
it was like, come on. Someone in the chat said, what if Firewall's effective special summon was thrice per turn? Like, see, like, if things like this were the case, well, even that's pretty bad. Firewall Dragon is just insane. But let's not go
Firewall.
that far.
I believe I said like Firewall on average. It doesn't. I think there was at one point where I like looked at all the combos and I actually figured out like on average how many monsters does Firewall summon.
Like
and it
2
was like
or 3,
6.
Right?
No, it was like 6.
Is it? Yeah.
It was something crazy.
Well, at least thrice per turn would stop the FTK. So.
Right. No. That might have been with Goblin though. When just Invoker could literally Gumblar and Trigate and extra, like just Invoker could do that. It was crazy. But without that, it's got a little. Maybe it's less than 3 now, but now it's 0.
You gave a really good example, Ryan, about the Noble Knight like monster and how.
Right. Yeah. So additionally, what I think about, I think as weird or as hard to believe, I think Konami is actually learning a lot on how to make their cards. It doesn't seem like that all the time, but hear me out. So if you look at from Link Vrains Pack 1 to Link Vrains Pack 2, there is so much they've learned. It's actually crazy. Can I just like read verbatim what I wrote earlier? I just need to find it. I think I put it pretty well. Let me just pull that up there.
So the idea is that, you know, between and I'll bring up a second point while Ryan does that. So the biggest issue I thought was like, you know, Link monsters are like really generic, super easy to summon, and Link climbing is like really, really problematic.
Right, I found it. Sorry if I can, but you can continue.
So the one line of text that I feel has been really like noticeable from the new set is cannot be used as a Link material, and that's something that was.
I think that's very good.
That is a very good. All right, so.
Otherwise,
the
Barbiche
design
actually
team,
would be the best card in the game.
yes, I think the design team learned a lot from Link Vrains Pack 1. Like, I don't think they initially realized how much easier Link summoning was than Xyz or Synchro summoning. So they weren't designing the cards with the proper like restrictions in mind. Link Vrains Pack's 2 cards have way more restrictions on the summoning conditions, as well as more specificity on the payoffs of what those cards do. So, for example, I think if Isolde was kept until Link Vrains Pack 2, it would have read send Noble Arms equip spells from your deck to the graveyard.
Or it would require at least one Noble Knight
Or it would
monster.
require at least one Noble Knight monster.
Yeah. So like I think that's the best way to approach cards like that. Because then instead of like creating generic cards like the invoked Link, right? Like for future card design, it's just gonna create a bunch of problems because now you can just, here's my shitty generic deck, but it can put 2 monsters on the field. It can turn into this Link that can, turn into an invocation, and now I can just like flash a bunch of like Alistair, like whatever, right?
Yes.
But now imagine if that card said like you need to use an Alistair to make it, or something dumb like that. Just a bunch of weird things. Instead of just creating generic cards.
If you need
of course, well, like that's like maybe a bad argument, but just think about it like the whole idea is you want to create links for these decks that push the decks that they're being made for, and like that's gonna be the biggest thing.
Yes.
Instead of creating generic cards that just won't end up being played in those decks to begin with.
Yes, I have a kind of an argument to come full circle with that later, but so basically, Isolde is 2 warriors, right? This is a Noble Knight card. This card has Noble Knight in the name. All right.
So Ryan's an expert on these cards.
Nowhere else on the text of Isolde, other than the name, does the word Noble Knight appear. It does not appear anywhere else.
Which is
it is a Noble Knight card, yet it is created with 2 warriors. You send equips. You add any warrior. You can't use it that turn, but you add any warrior. You send any number of equip spells, and then summon any warrior from your deck. Nowhere does this like directly actually help Noble Knights at all, but sure, whatever. So then you have just an archetype specific Link monster that helps warriors support warriors. So you turn any warrior deck into a toolbox for any warriors in the whole game, not just their own deck. Then on the flip side, you have the 6 Sam Link, which is, I believe, also just 2 warriors. I believe it's just 2. It might be at least one 6 Sam, but
has to be one 6 Sam.
And one has to be a 6 Sam. Even better. Perfect. And that card searches 6 Sam support cards. It turns 6 samurai monsters and warriors into more 6 samurai monsters.
And it generates
Armageddon
Bushido tokens when you summon.
Yes. Like
so essentially completely useless outside of the 6 Sam archetype.
Outside of playing 6 Sams, it is
also honorable.
It's very powerful in 6 Sams, but it's not exploitable outside of 6 Sams. So then, I think Needle Fiber is a good example of them not knowing exactly how easy Link summoning would end up being. Like when they made Needle Fiber, they wanted it to be an easier way to synchro summon, right? They wanted to help you synchro summon, because synchro summoning was very, very, very underutilized other than Omega, because you only had 1 extra monster zone, and Omega could, do the whole like woo thing where he, leaves, but he comes back.
See ya.
See ya. So then I think if Needle Fiber had been released in Link Vrains Pack 2, it would have had the cannot be used as a Link material during the term it is summoned restriction. And
is that a real restriction? I thought
that is a restriction. I believe 3 of the Link Vrains Pack 2
so it's not just cannot be used as a Link material, it's cannot be used as a Link material this turn.
They have both. The Phantom Knight cannot be used as a Link material ever. Platinum Gadget, which is a new Gadget Link monster, and I believe the Train one says cannot be used as a Link material during the turn it is summoned.
I never knew that. That is actually really good design.
That is I think that is a very good design change that I hope they use more often. So I think Needle Fiber would have had that line of text, and I think it would have said the tuner you use
must be a Christian.
Cannot be used as a material or attributed other than a synchro summon.
Okay.
So it would have facilitated synchro summoning, and it would have actually stuck around to use its banish effect.
Yeah.
Right. I think it would have actually been used as they imagined it to be used. I don't think they imagined it to go summon Mecha Phantom Beast token, make summon Sork, summon token, make B, and I don't think they thought Armageddon Knight would end on a Buster. Like that's not what they thought of. That's not what they imagined, I hope, when they made Crystron Needlefiber. But that's what it ended up being. Like
Crystron Needlefiber is another card that has Crystron nowhere in the name of the card text, except
nowhere,
in its name.
no other. Ironically, one of the best things. Ironically, Mermail does summon Crystron Needlefiber using not a Crystron tuner, but Undyne sends a Crystron that makes a token.
Yes.
And then summons Undyne and makes Needlefiber, which is really fun.
Good.
But it's
Undyne's nice.
Like just a happy accident. But yeah, so that was all I had about card design from Link Vrains Pack 1 to Link Vrains Pack 2. So keep up the good work on that, Konami. That was you actually had a lot of winners on that one.
This is what makes me really excited.
Ironically.
That really makes me like, what's the word? Hopeful for the game and stuff. Because I've just been
they're learning. Yes.
Yeah. I've been very sort of down with just how like broken the game feels right now and stuff, you know, and like outside of the one Sky Striker mirror I played earlier, which felt very fun because it was like, you know, everything that happened in that duel I feel was narrowed down to either me misplaying or my opponent getting outplayed or something, right? It was like you felt very much in control, whereas now like with combo decks, I don't know if it's always been this way with combo decks, but it very much seems like if both players do it properly, like it really just comes down to who's drawn better or who's playing like the better archetype for the combo.
I think there's like an underlying issue with stuff like that though, where it's like you can main deck cards to beat decks like that. You can like before Gumblar existed, right? You could conceivably just play cards that are there to break the extra link, or like be good if you do get extra links to like rivalry goes and match, just weird stuff like that. And like Gumblar sort of ignores that, which is like an issue. But if you just have people playing their combo decks, making like these are my quote unquote unbreakable board, shit like that, usually that's still sort of you're able to play against it. It's when they just like FDK you or like pseudo FDK you by taking every card that you have, then it's like a problem. But you can like it's still sort of like viable to do something. It's when like the decks just do all things at once. Like imagine if
but don't you
could only like discard your hand, right? And the Danger Dark World deck was like still a thing, and like they can't extra link you. They usually just don't give you Ibly, and you'll just proc a bunch of Dark World. You'll proc a bunch of dangers from them Gumblaring you. You know what I mean?
But don't you find it like really frustrating though? Like when you are playing like against the combo deck or something like that, you're very much reliant on, see, like, you know, in a Sky Striker mirror, for example, you need to like, you can deal with their Sky Striker combos with Sky Striker cards, whereas if you're playing against combo, you need to draw like these unsearchable non-archetypal cards. Like you need the hand trap, you need like an impermanence.
Yeah,
or
but
something.
you need to draw the cards in the Striker deck anyway.
Of course, but
you know what I mean.
But they're a lot more accessible.
Like, I feel like, yeah, of course. Well, like Striker just has like the Striker mirror match at least. Even though there is like a lot of glaring issues that you know I wanted to get into, but this isn't a Milan stream. This is a Banlist stream. I just think like you can get away with there's just some games you cannot win, just unwinnable.
Is that Glenn?
I don't know what that was.
I think that's Glenn.
Is that on myself? Yes. All right.
I don't know. So
maybe I'll go check.
Okay, I do know that was a lie. I don't know why I said I don't know, but what I do know is, as far as I think, what we were supposed to talk about, like fun and Yu-Gi-Oh, right? Was that one of the topics?
Sure.
Cool. I don't know if that was. Yeah,
I heard to find sometimes now, but yes.
Yeah, I heard that as one of the topics. I feel like, and when I heard that, I was like, well, I think that's mostly subjective. However, objectively, we can kind of look at the empirical data here. And you said like you discussed like a Sky Striker mirror, right? And now there are a lot of flaws in like that mirror, like specifically, but that's semantics, right? Like, I mean, look, fact of the matter is, to win in that mirror, you have to draw engage and then a bunch of non-engine cards because all the cards like cancel each other out, right? Whatever, doesn't matter. But objectively, like these combo decks, which come down to just like rolling dice and like shooting dice, you're playing these for like 10, 11 events. The person who's playing like Striker or a deck like that, a deck where they have like a chance to play back, even though like all these combo decks limit the card pool, and that's bad in itself, right? Statistically, more endorphins are like pumping into their body with like each card played. So like, if I'm activating engage, and you're like, I'm so serious, and you're normal summoning suplex, like you're running a count of like 60, and I'm running a count of like 100, like as I'm playing like each card I'm playing, right? So that's why, like in that 17-minute deck profile you admonished, right, about Sky Striker that I made. One thing I tried to mention was that you will feel very fulfilled playing it, like you will, because it's almost like railing ketamine. It's like, and I've never railed ketamine.
Why would you say that, Alex? You would just respond.
No. I'm saying I've never done that. I've never ever done that. But ever. Let's keep that in mind. And once again, nobody I know in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is
okay, Alex, just tell us your point.
Okay, but I'm saying outside of Yu-Gi-Oh! You know, I know. Anyway, people suck. But you are experiencing more like moment by moment joy by playing Sky Striker, because you like decks like that are like well rounded, where it's not just like sorry, I'm trying to flip like a bottle. Heads, okay, I win. Like,
okay, hold on. I just need to. Can I just stop you for 1 second?
Sure.
And here, just remember the timestamp of what just happened, and later just find the picture of me with my hands in my face and be like, when you're trying to run a civilized discussion about card design and your guest talks about railing ketamine or something. Like,
but I'm saying like
that's just right. Like I'm just like, oh, what's going? Like how did we?
I would expect this from any of these.
Yeah, like what did you?
I'm just saying. It's just you're at like I could have sworn one of the topics, and I knew this was going to come up. One of the topics was fun in Yu-Gi-Oh! Today, right? And I'm telling you, that is a time I need to see.
I'm having a lot of fun
right
topic.
Good. I'm glad I could be entertaining. But if that was not a topic, then I apologize. Yeah. Honestly, I apologize. That just wasn't a topic. But
no, it's fine. It's fine.
Right. But fact of the matter is, like, fun, and again, fun is mostly subjective. Like, when people say, like, I play for fun, that can mean, like, 5 million different things.
Yeah.
I think that is one of the most useless statements ever.
But it is a very useless statement.
But the thing is, like, from a game, like, from the company's perspective, like, they probably have in their mind, in their vision, the sort of direction that they want to take the game in that would overall be enjoyable for the most amount of people. I assume that's what they're trying to do, right? So while there isn't like an objective standard of fun, there has to be some kind of hallmarks that work for the majority amount of players.
So I think
people have to. Sorry, I'm letting you. Sorry.
Go ahead.
What people have to understand is that Konami is not out to get you. Konami wants you to have fun, because the more fun you have, the more money you spend on their products.
Right. The more like
it's
like,
just like
so that's
you not
you know
having fun is detrimental to their bottom line. So you just choose to
So like
people can make these baseless claims as much as they want, but at the end of the day,
correct. Just at the end of the day, they're trying to make a product that appeals to as many people as possible.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't necessarily like, and then sometimes we see very clearly, like Firewall did not appeal to many people, so they banned it, right? Like that's like Firewall was hurting their bottom line. Like, that was a card that people did not find fun. They thought it was very frustrating to play against Firewall, and now it is gone, right? Like that's kind of like where we are at the moment, more or less. Of like,
so I think there's I think there's a big correlation, like I was saying with like Sky Striker is more enjoyable to play, right? I think there's a big correlation, generally speaking, with decks being or like the game being more fun and games going on longer. And Sky Striker is certainly a deck. You say no, right? But like the most prolific, not the most prolific, but the most played retro format is no surprise. 2005 April 2005 Go Control, which was which had the longest
surprise.
I mean, like,
sorry, I make sure I got you.
I'm just saying, like, okay, just make sure.
I think maybe the correlation should be fun with interactivity more so than
I think interactivity is a big one.
The game goes on
so long because
it's so people are setting up and like your deck has zero reach. I think it's more fun to play against a deck like Mermail that's like explosive and like controlling versus playing Sky Striker, which is essentially just Fire Fist, where like you just trade back and forth. Like people will have different ideas of fun, but I think when the games are going to time, so extensively because either one person feels they have to play Sky Striker because what else are they gonna play, or B, your opponent like playing Striker and just taking a like ridiculous amount of time because their deck doesn't do anything. That's frustrating. Right?
Okay, but so it doesn't do anything. I don't know. I'm not so sure. I'm on that. So one thing I want to emphasize is that I don't mean longer games as in games going into time. I mean like longer, just like on average,
more turns.
Right.
I think from now on, can we define longer game not as like
pure
real
duration
time, not as but as in game time, like
turn count. Absolutely, yeah.
So for the duration of this, let's just consider longer game to mean turn count, not like not freeze play time in the round.
Yes, correct. Yeah. No, I 100% agree. I wouldn't say that, like, I guess specifically, I wouldn't say Sky Striker does nothing, but yeah, I don't like. I don't think there's a correlation with more fun and deck like games like a format where decks take like 12 minutes to set up like 5 back row. Like that's obnoxious. Yeah. I get that. I agree with you. There's like definitely some middle ground with that, but like in like where like the game state is being advanced, like very not necessarily quickly, but just the turn count goes on longer. And like what Sky Striker does, like the longer the game goes, turn count wise, the stronger the deck gets, because like against other deck, it just accumulates more resources. And now with its accumulation, it can like it is much stronger. You know, each of the cards rewards you for having more spells in your grave, which assumes that that there are more turns going by.
But the thing is, I think there's sometimes a bit of a sweet spot with that, right? Because there's diminishing returns. It's not like the more turns there are, the game just gets infinitely more fun as there are more turns.
Because when you get to turn 50, you're like, sure.
Right, and you guys are just like stalling. Yeah, okay, yeah, right. But I mean, like on average, like
yes,
generally.
Well, because what I will say to that, I think generally what people want, maybe not all the time, but most of the time, people generally acknowledge what makes an enjoyable game is somebody getting rewarded for playing well.
Right. Exactly.
And as games take more turns, the better player, air quotes better player, I think a lot goes into determining who is the better player in a specific game versus like overall. The better player has more opportunities to like leverage their play skill and win.
Because there are just so many interactions.
Because there are more interactions, there are more things that happen. So I think that's where we get to. I'm not going to say a longer game is more fun. A longer game is more fulfilling. If that helps, if that definition is more acceptable.
Like, I think there's a correlation. The decks now that like force a longer game, like Sky Striker, just create those weird scenarios where you're sort of just playing against all these free cards that they've generated. Whereas like if you look at like an older format, it's like they've slowly accumulated these cards through like, what is it? What am I looking at? Like they're just being not like the control. They're just being like patient. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I think like
and then if you want to look at like the extreme of patience is like
Monarch mirrors.
No, like January spiral mirrors. Like there are some times when you look at your hand, oh, I have Gofu 1-for-1. I'm just gonna kill you. And there are some times when you have Ash Reaper, like, you know, Drone's agent, and you're like, I think I'm gonna hold off. And then you get into this pass, and you like keep passing back. There are literally games where I've passed enough times that I hand limit discarded Rescue Master Plan. And then you like kill them. Like that is sometimes how slow that format gets, which is like crazy because at the time people were saying like, oh my god, this is the fastest Yu-Gi-Oh's ever been. And there were literally like feature matches in like top 16s of YCSs where people go pass, draw, pass.
Yeah, for like totally changed that format.
It was I don't. It just that was like really. So I don't think I think it's gonna be really weird if we ever get to a point like that again. Like I don't think there are cards that are that polarizing anymore. And I think Necroz was a similar way where the goal of your turn 1 was to control no cards. Let's think about that a second.
Right.
The goal of a format was to control no cards.
It was supposed to go second.
Yeah, like that's nuts, right? Like that was also sort of the goal with Spiral too, more or less. But like, I think that's crazy that like that there's there are cards that have existed that have been so polarizing that it shifts the entire metagame towards have nothing on your field after your first turn is over.
Right.
And that's interesting design that I think a format happening like a format like that happening every so often is fine, but I feel like that then gets too boring, right? Where like those games aren't fun,
right?
Because nothing's actually happening.
Yeah. So you have to. So in these like longer games, you can't just be passing. I agree with you there. Like the more. See, we keep going back to the word fun, and I was the one who brought it up, I guess. But like, as I'm saying it more, I'm like, it's just so subjective, right? But the more fulfilling formats, right? I feel like are the ones where you're doing the most. I guess it really is like a sweet spot where you're doing enough actions per turn, and having enough of a presence in the game, especially on the field. Because that's where the game, like, yeah, you have your hand, right? I'm like, that's like kind of like level 2 Yu-Gi-Oh. But like level 1 Yu-Gi-Oh is like, right? Like you have gray, you have like cards in the field and then cards in your like backfield. That's like level 1 Yu-Gi-Oh, and that's kind of what like everyone who approaches the game, especially, they want to do. And so you feel more fulfilled when you can just like put cards on the table, and then like your opponent puts cards on the table, and then you put cards on the table back. And so
it is very boring to draw cards.
Right,
it is very unsatisfying. It is very unsatisfying to look at the Garnet in your hand and be like, well, I can't play this. I see what you mean. That's actually just worse. That is worse. Like looking at a card you can't play, I would actually argue feels worse than having no card.
But I'd say like it's almost just as bad to have like to go and then have your hand of like Ash Reaper. All of these cards, like you can play them, right? But you can play, but
they're not proactive,
right? And on top of that, you're rewarded not to play. It's like playing against Inzector back in
Reaper is actually a card that rewards you for not playing. That is
you just don't play, and which is I hate cards like that because you should be punished for.
I hadn't actually thought I had thought about that to a certain extent, but not in that context and not like in those words. That is interesting. Right. That Reaper is a card, and I guess that then comes into but I think that's like the balancing point behind Reaper, because if it didn't have that clause and you just
be crazy.
You just go, I'll go first, turn play priority, Reaper you, and then they're like chain Reaper, you're like, damn it, and then they and then
you got me, no,
you go, no, over,
unbelievable. Calvin wouldn't be able to survive.
Yes.
I don't think for me personally, like the biggest frustration that I have in the game, and I've looked into a lot of just game design as a actual discipline and stuff, and it's one thing when talking about feedback and stuff towards the company. I mean, I don't know if Konami will watch this or whatever, but I hope you guys do. The best feedback you can give, the best feedback you can give is to tell the designer how you feel and how something makes you feel, rather than provide solutions. So I don't know what the best direction is to take the game in and stuff, but all I can say is from me personally, more recently than ever, I feel a lot of games I lose have been out of my control, and something that
it feels bad.
Right, exactly. So when someone loops my hand and it's I didn't draw the hand trap, that makes me feel frustrated with the game, because number one, I didn't get to play, which, at least in other formats and stuff, if my opponent sacks me or whatever, well, at least for a few turns I got to do something. But now it's the complete opposite, other end of the spectrum, where I have no cards in my hand, I didn't draw the out I needed, and I'm just stuck there staring down something that is just out of my control, which is why I don't like floodgates, which is why I don't like hand loop and stuff. And combo decks have just gone to this point where they make such unbelievably insane boards that you can't play. And the Sky Striker Mirror is the only sort of resolve I've found of fun in this game. Not to say Sky Striker is the paragon of mirror matches or something.
You can just not play Sky Striker, because you have to look at it this way. The deck is so good that you conceivably either have to play it or play a deck that's more unfair than it, right?
Whoa,
you're either playing a deck
but the thing is that the solution to combo decks isn't you just play the combo deck, because if you go second, it does not matter what deck you're playing. That's the argument, is if they get their combo, it is irrelevant what deck you're
Of course.
playing, what cards are in your hand, like it all becomes irrelevant. That like you didn't lose because you were playing Sky Striker. Like if you were playing Goki, you wouldn't
No,
just
no. Imagine
combo
you're
first.
playing Striker against like EA or like against Ultra guys who like Village and stuff like that. I'm saying like therein lies the issue. I think when there's too many decks now, and then like a lot of them just have like even against Thunder Dragon, you can just end with like double Colossus something, right? And then half of the time Sky Striker actually just cannot play, right?
Yeah.
That's just like the reasonable way to look at it. There's so many decks right now, and then like they all just have like these glaring flaws where it's just like you cannot like cover everything. You can play BA and pick second, and then you can burst all these combo decks, right?
I think we're just agreeing on the same thing. I'm not sure what you're arguing here.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think
Sky
we're
Striker's the worst
agreeing
deck.
that like yes, like Striker isn't broken, Striker isn't bad. Like combo decks have their flaws. The problem is that they're uninteractive, and that's not fun.
Like for me personally, like
that's exactly what we're saying.
That's the bottom line.
I've always enjoyed playing like combo decks more than anything. I like when I first started playing the game, like I really enjoyed Infernity, and that's probably not the best example at all of a healthy combo deck. But that's like where I started.
No, I think that was fine because there was actually like you would have 5 cards to play against Infernity.
Right, sure.
Yeah,
like
you actually
like
did
when you
get
started-
all of your cards to play against them.
Right,
When
exactly.
you were delving into stuff like Vanity's Emptiness and Master Key Beetle when it was like
Right,
really
yeah,
oppressive.
But like, and then I moved on to like Mythic Rulers and stuff like that, and like those mirror matches were some of like my favorite that I've ever played and stuff. And because of that going forth with some kind of explosiveness, you know, back in the day, I used to watch yourself, Alex, like, and it was just amazing watching that final between
What are you gonna do? No,
that
but
final between you and Patrick. Like that was like the greatest thing I'd
Oh.
ever seen. You know, I
Oh
loved
god,
it.
I played like shit, so please don't quote that one.
But
I
now
played
it's like
so bad. Yeah.
Where is like the fun in like a combo mirror? You know, it's like I feel like the combos are so far gone now that there is no trading with each other's boards like there used to be. It's really just a battle of hand traps now, and I don't know what to say about hand traps. I mean, that could be a whole other FarfaCast itself. But something about combo mirrors now just aren't like what they used to be for me, you know. So I'm automatically degraded to having to play something like BA or Sky Striker where it is a rewarding mirror match, or if I'm playing BA and I'm playing against a mirror match, is probably like not terrible, but it's probably better than a combo mirror match. But if I'm playing against something like, you know, Sky Striker with BA, like there is like that back and forth, there is that interaction, which I don't think this game overall like has been offering anywhere near as much as it has in the past.
You know, it's funny you brought up like Burning Abyss because, and when you talk about like mirror matches and stuff like that, the type of mirror that you mentioned is very much one that, now again, fun, subjective, but in my opinion is the most rewarding to play, which is the type of mirror where you play and then you set up a board and then your opponent breaks it and then you come back and then you break it and then you just go back and forth breaking each other's boards and then rebuilding boards. And that's kind of how the last mirror, the last deck that I played that had a mirror like that was Burning Abyss when Firelake came out, or even when Beatrice came out, it was like that too. And,
I think Monarch was very much the same way as well.
Really? I didn't really play
But
Monarch.
you just kind of trade Erebus and Aethers until eventually like one of you accumulate, like you have to manage your resources and you either grind them out or they make a mistake and then you OTK them, which I think VA was much of the same, right?
Exactly, very much so. And in fact, the deck was fast, so it was very rewarding to play. You put cards in the field, it like swarmed quickly, and then you blew up all your opponent's shit, and then your opponent would blow up all your shit, and then set up again, and then but then in that there were a lot of these little interactions where you can get ahead a little bit here, ahead a little bit there. Your opponent could like outplay you here, outplay you there, and it's awesome. And hello, Lou.
I think in hindsight that format was better than a lot of people gave it credit for. But I think maybe just because every format's gotten worse since then.
But yeah,
I don't know. Maybe not.
Those mirrors are like extremely rewarding to play, like 110%. And I don't think, and like I was talking to Ryan about before, with Firewall Dragon and cards like that setting a really bad precedent. Like, where will they go? Like, where will Konami go from here? And so far, apparently, in accordance to Link Vrain's Pack 2, they're going in a good direction. Like, cards are getting slightly weaker, and they are starting to prohibit the usage of the insane card. So therefore, as time goes by, eventually, hopefully sooner rather than later.
I actually more or less redact my thoughts. I had assumed they would learn nothing, and Link Vrains Pack 2 would just be like when Link Vrains Pack 2 was announced. I thought that was the end of the game. Like I thought Yu-Gi-Oh was done. I was like, wow, the Link Vrains Pack was so good. They made a sequel. I was like, that's great. But I actually it's just very well designed cards, and like the only one that I think had the potential to be ridiculous was actually like the Thunder Dragon one, and they made it a Link 4, and it's unplayable. It's crazy. They just made it a Link 4, and it's awful. So
I was very worried about the Six Sam one. To be honest,
good job on that one.
And there's a lot of
Six Sam ones too. The Six Samurai one, by the way, is crazy. You know how Ryan said you could do anything you want with the Fire Fist Link monster. You can.
Yeah, I know the Six Sam one is also you can do anything you want. Oh yeah, the Fire Fist.
Anything.
Literally every video I see is of someone like saying, "I do the Six Sam video, like the combo," and then they just dump a bunch of counters on the table. Like they pour like a cup of counters.
Yeah,
it's hilarious.
It's insane. They're just like, man, they summon. They're like, fuck, I need more dice.
Okay.
Like,
however, yes, yeah, I need more dice.
Yeah. Oh shit.
Yes. Okay.
Think this or that.
That's crazy.
It was funny because a card like Gateway of the Six would have benefited from like can only be used thrice per turn.
You can only be used thrice per turn. Yes.
Before you start, Ryan, there was a feature match I read that I heard about from Singapore or something, from Indonesia or something. They had a huge YCS level tournament there, right? And Six Samurai came second. And in his top 4 or his top 8, because it cut to top 8, right?
It's not Indonesia, you're dumb. Indonesia doesn't have organized play. But
I don't know. Whatever. One of them. I don't care. It's something. I don't know. It was a wild.
It's Singapore.
Actually run out of dice.
Yes.
It was Singapore. Awesome. Yes. So yes, he had 9,000 Bushido tokens. So he needed a lot of
Bushido counters, right?
The same thing.
Yeah. So he busts these dude and attacks over a guy for 1 billion damage.
Like literally 1 billion damage. Yeah. So anyway, continue, please.
Okay, I will be honest with you.
Have we found the counter to like an infinite life point loop? You just play the Six Samurai and
I'll be honest with you. I forgot where I was going with whatever I was saying. That was actually such an entrancing story that I don't think what I had to say was probably worth saying.
Something about
compared to that magnificent.
It's incredible. Anecdote. That deck is hilarious.
Maybe. Okay, sequel. Maybe not as much was learned as I thought from Link. Maybe they didn't learn quite as much as I thought they learned.
I like how you said you mentioned the Fire Fist Link, and then you were like, "But yeah, they're learning." You can loop all these cards.
So how about this? They're learning with like at least they're keeping it in house. At least you're looping with like bad Fire Fist cards, and like you're looping with like Six Samurais, which are like in a vacuum. Those cards are terrible. But like when any 2 Six Samurai turns into Six Sam Link guy, then like maybe they're not terrible. Like I don't know. Or we just ban Gateway again? Can that just maybe January? No sooner than January 21st. Or how about this? Don't print the Six Sam Link. That's worked for us so far, more or less.
It's been pretty good so far.
Yeah, that's been pretty good. Hey, can we get Needle Fiber after Summon Sword gets banned? That would be. I'm
anticipating it coming very soon, though. I think that was a very big.
If you looked, am I allowed to talk? Am I allowed to speculate stuff? Have we reached that part of the chat where I can just talk about random stuff now, or do you have another topic you'd like to finish?
FarfaCast.
I actually did have another one, but we are going a little over. I might just leave it out. But
yeah.
What was
the other one?
I wanted to talk about the shit. Where did I write it down? Fuck, I've gone completely blank. I can't find it. Go on, tell your thing.
Talking about Sky Strike.
All right.
Now I feel good.
So if you guys have seen OTS 9, which actually apparently the locals next, like not near my house, but like one of the locals near me, got it today.
Anime Pavilion.
That's just out. It was not Anime Pavilion, sadly, but thankfully. Anyway. That is just out now, and if I remember correctly, it has a NECA Phantom Beast token. That's kind of neat for O-Lion, and it has like Jet Synchron, maybe Summoned off your Needle Fiber, and some other stuff. It had I actually want to look at it now. Does anybody just know
Does it have a
What
Steam? Does it have a
concept?
Steam the
Like,
cloak token?
There were like a lot of really weird ones that I was like, this card is summoned off Needle Fiber in Japan, or like this card, like Needle Fiber makes this card in Japan. I just need to find the list now. Oh no.
Oh, I
Should
actually
have had
remembered
this
my
ready.
thing now.
Okay, yeah, go for it while I
got
look
it.
this up.
Yeah, so I mean, this is something that's obviously like more prevalent in like digital card games and stuff, but like, you know, erratas and things like that for balancing.
Yes.
How do you guys feel about like, you know, errata in cards as a form of not so much a ban list, but at least like curbing some cards that would otherwise never return to the game? Like for example, Firewall, I generally can't see that ever being a card in the game unless they give it an errata. Like I just don't see how that card will ever come back. Obviously ignoring the pure extreme cases like Sangan and Sinister that just didn't need an errata to begin with.
DMOC, like,
Yeah.
DMOC probably needed to be once per turn, not end phase. There was no reason for it to be at the end phase. That's
Right.
just kicking the walls down.
So like, what do you guys think about like just having them errata? And I know it's a lot more difficult with like a physical card game, but what do you think about erratas as a form of balancing?
I think when done well, it is effective. When done poorly, you may as well just print a new card.
Right.
That's
or even
about,
retrains,
right?
you know, like Desires, I guess, is basically...
retrains are... I actually really like retrains. Retrains are cool. That's kind of what Thunder Dragon... Like, Thunder Dragon Dark, specifically, is kind of just like a retrained Thunder Dragon. I think it actually has the same stats, or like flipped stats or something, and it's dark, not light, and it adds 1 and whatever. It's cool. You know, I think retrains are always cool because you get, you know, you get cards that you used to play when you were little, maybe, and like you like, but weren't viable anymore, and now you get to play them again. I think retrains are actually one of the best ways to, probably for them to make money. They kind of milk nostalgia a little bit. They get people interested in them that they haven't, you know what I mean? Like, it's pretty cool.
I think that's a big thing too. Like, again, like just the enjoyment value out of like playing, like the enjoyment value as to like playing each card, right? Like if you're able to play like even like a retrained version of a card you played 10x amount of years ago when you were maybe half the size you are now, there's just a novelty to it. And it's just, correct. I think, yeah, no, I like it a lot, but again, that's totally subjective. There are some people who just like aren't
or like, oh, how dare they make a blue flame swordsman? Now my flame swordsman deck is ruined, and it's like, all right,
unbelievable.
Yeah, like outrageous. Yeah, it's like, all right, man. Like, I'm sorry.
Like, whatever. Like,
I think Pot of Desires is probably the best example we have because it's like it draws 2 cards, and in the decks that it's strong in, it's great. But it's you can't just slap it into everything. There is some kind of thinking about it, and you do need to like activate it at certain times.
I could write a thesis paper on Pot of Desires.
Right.
Jesus,
yeah. And I think
that card is actually one of the like. That card.
Do you not like it?
That is one of no. I don't necessarily dislike it or like it. I think it creates. Okay, yes, I do hate it. That is true. I do hate it. I do not believe it is healthy for the game. I believe it adds a ridiculous amount of variance and
that otherwise
randomness that otherwise wouldn't be there and wouldn't be there. And it's just like but I think it is also it can be rewarding if you have enough knowledge and you haven't. But most people just don't think about it, slap it down, and either get punished or rewarded, not knowing they were supposed to be or they weren't supposed to be.
So before Sekka's Light became the standard in Burning Abyss, like Desires was like generally played in BA despite like so many limited cards. But the idea there was like it was like good enough where you could like generally on turn 1 like get to a Scarm Search, get your tour guide out, next turn tour guide into that graph, get the Seer. Now all of those cards are out of your deck. That's when you can drop Pot of Desires. That was like an actual like thing you had to consider in Burning Abyss. But I do know what you mean. Like in a lot of decks, like you can activate it and like, oh well, my Brilliant Fusion's dead, etc. that I've just drawn.
It's not even that. That's actually not. It's not even for reasons as cut and dry as. It actually goes way deeper than that, which is why I was saying like I read a thesis paper on it of like I literally like for my oh god how I must have been I wrote an article for FarfaYGO or a year and a half something about
Pot of Desires?
No, about YCS Toronto. And one of the things that I very specifically Mike Albanese and I played a Draco Zoo deck, and we very specifically did not play Pot of Desires in it. And because of this, we made a lot of changes other people didn't, where like we only played one masterpiece, because when you're not banishing it, you don't actually want to draw that card. You want to search it off of diagram. Like drawing it is actually kind of a brick. So you played one masterpiece. We played like we played like, and then we played like less of each of the less desirable Zoo and Draco cards, and then that gave us extra room to put in like other stuff we wanted. Like, I don't remember exactly how it ended up.
Defensive cards or shuffle.
Yeah, stuff like that. I don't remember
like,
precisely what it was, but it was stuff like that where it was like, so like arguably we put more engine cards in our deck and we have just desires, and maybe that's more consistent, or maybe it's like better or worse, whatever. But it's like you put like bad engine cards in your deck to supplement desires, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
You could just banish, like if you only play one, because you know, that was my that was one of my most recent event tops. But
that was a year and a half ago.
All right, relax, calm down. So like nobody who the fuck anyway. So but with desires, like you'd have to play like multiple copies of Masterpiece. Otherwise, you could just banish it and it's gone, and then that kills half the reason you're playing this deck, right? But drawing Masterpiece on its own, which you had to play multiple copies of to make sure you don't banish it off desires, is necessary. So in not playing desires, you don't actually have to play. The whole point of not playing desires was less so. I think I read the article, so but what I got from it was you don't play desires so that you can play less of the bad cards, more of the better cards, and then your deck is overall better, but you're not drawing 2 cards at the expense of 10 cards in your deck. Randomly.
Or you just banish it and you don't care.
But that's the thing, like, you know.
Sometimes
I think that's why it's. I think that's why it's a good card, because you have that decision making before you put it in your deck. Like, you have to,
when someone actually goes through that decision making.
Sure.
But when somebody, you know what I mean, like that's the thing. It's like when someone just puts it in their deck, when someone says something like, I don't play desires, it's bad, and like they don't think about why it's good or bad, or somebody's like, desires is broken, I put 3 in every deck, and then they activate it in a deck they shouldn't have it in. And then maybe it's like, okay, I'm not gonna say specifically, but it's like maybe like there's some deck that like statistically they probably shouldn't have it, and then they activate it and they just banish like not like literally 0 of their search cards. And they're like, see, look, it's really good. And it's like, well, maybe it's like X% of the time.
Obnoxious.
Like maybe it's like X% of the time, like in this deck specifically, in this situation, like you actually would banish a card that you needed, and like you actually kind of like, you know, so it just creates so many variables that I think like it's like at the highest level, I think it's fine. I think it just like it just creates so much variance and so many problems.
It's just dumb. Frustrating. It was from a card design perspective. It's just card design. It's just awful.
I think Pot of Indulgences is an incredibly well designed.
I agree.
And I think Pot of Desire, with maybe a few too many restrictions, but maybe not. And I think Pot of Desire is a card that.
You know what I like about that card especially? I like on Pot of Indulgence. I like how you can choose to draw 1 or 2. Depending on how many you banish from, and you can control.
A guy in our chat says he played 6 AM and got second at the Singapore Winter Tournament recently. Is he the guy that got 9,000 tokens? Are you the guy that got 9,000 Bushido?
That has to be.
That's my multi. That's my.
We just talked about.
Okay, it must be. Okay,
that has to. Oh, is he trolling?
Yeah, that's me. Okay, unironically, were you here when we talked about it? Are you that guy? All right, I don't know. Maybe we're just getting punked. I have no idea.
You're getting netted.
I refuse to.
We're definitely getting netted. Yes.
I refuse.
Joined right after. Somebody else, that's him. Well, we literally were talking about Link Variance Pack 2, and talked about 9,000 Bushido counters on the field. So
attack over.
That's interesting.
Monster.
Yeah.
What did he lose to? He lost to Trickstar. That's sad. But yeah. No, desires is just ridiculous. It's just so dumb, and like people throw it in. So I read a YouTube comment, right? By the way, never ever do this.
Never ever do that. Yeah.
Oh,
literally,
they're exclusively Mike Albanese.
Yeah.
Oh yes. By the way, on average, a mean YouTube comment on a Yu-Gi-Oh! Probably a Mike Albanese. Or like statistically, like on average, if we were to look at every YouTube comment, like it's Mike is most of them.
Yeah, it's just like you can tell it's Mike too. Sometimes probably because like some of them are just like 5% true, and those are the ones that are just like, oh my god, this like destroys my heart. Anyway.
What a cute
So
couple. Ryan
there was
and
one.
Ryan and
There was one YouTube comment I read, and it was just like it was on like a Sky Striker deck profile, and this guy. Okay, it was mine. This guy was like, myself. I was like, I don't play Desires. It sucks. And then someone in the YouTube comment said, it's objectively correct to play Desires, 3 copies of Desires and everything, because in every mirror, if you are 2 cards ahead of your opponent, then you're automatically winning, and you're going to win the match. And it was by far one of the
dumbest thing I've ever. That might be the
pseudo-intellectual.
Yes.
If you want to talk about dumb YouTube comments, I could be here forever. But anyway, I think we're way off where we started from. So I think overall we've had a really, really good, productive discussion. There's a lot of interesting and great points brought up about ban lists, sets, card design, all kinds of stuff. So if you guys tuned in late or whatever, feel free to check it out on YouTube. And for those of you who are on YouTube, thank you for tuning in this far. So thank you to everyone who joined me, Bowden and Ryan from ARG and Based Lolly from CCG. We will be back probably after Milan to talk about the meta in there. Do you have a shout out? Go ahead. Sure.
Oh, cool. Yeah. First of all, shout out to my mom. Just kidding. But shout out to Complexity Card Gaming. Catch them all at Milan. Hashtag Boys in Blue. Hashtag Card Market EU. Hashtag Junks Playground. And hashtag Ultimate Guard. Check us out. Follow our Facebook page.
You forgot Games Island.
Yeah, and Gamers Island.
Even I know this.
Junks Playground as well.
Yeah, I said that one. And check us out. We're having a website soon. And yes, check us out at Milan. Most of the team is going. I'm not. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right, and of course ARG as well with the tournament
shout out
next weekend.
Yes, there's ARG Orlando next weekend, which Firewall is banned.
So
anyway, double banned. Yeah, it's current format.
All right, guys, take care and see you.
Firewall's at -2.